Every leader knows that a thriving organization depends on the energy, productivity, and commitment of its people. But few leaders are able to cultivate the employee engagement and performance needed for this level of success. What's the difference? Positive leadership practices. Welcome to the Positive Leadership Movement Podcast with your host, positive work culture expert, Alex Bratty. Ready to harness the power of positive leadership? Let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Positive Leadership Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bratty, and I got to tell you, we are in for an amazing conversation on today's show. My guest today is Kierra. She is a professional speaker and adversity coach who describes herself as blind, bold, and changing the world. And yes, you did hear that correctly. Amber is blind. She lost 90% of her eyesight growing up. But has that held her back? Not one bit. She has learned to use courage to overcome fear and navigate obstacles of any kind. Amber believes in a world where we are not held back by our circumstances, but rather that we live our lives rooted in purpose with boldness and courage. This belief has instilled an immense drive to empower others to take the next step in making their wildest dreams come true. Through speaking on stages and one-on-one coaching, Amber is truly transforming leaders into bold world changers. And we are honored and privileged to have her on today's episode so she can share her infectious joy and her bold wisdom with us. So welcome to the show, Amber. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've really been looking forward to this interview for a while. So I'm so glad the day has finally come. And I'm really, really excited about our conversation and just being able to share love, light, wisdom, and excitement with your listeners.
Oh, I love it. And yes, I feel the same way because we've had this one on the books for a little while. And every time I've seen it on the calendar, I thought, oh, I'm so looking forward to this conversation because I know that you are going to have such powerful, wisdom to share here today because of your experience and because of all the adversity you've had to overcome. And how it translates to leaders. So I'm excited too. And so let's jump in. And when I have these conversations, I always start out by asking guests what their definition of positive leadership is and what it means to them because, hey, this is the Positive Leadership Movement Podcast. So Amber, what does positive leadership mean to you?
Really beautiful question, Alex. Positive leadership to me means showing up as your most authentic self in a way that honors your commitments. And so what I mean by that is that, figuring out what it is in this life that you are committed to. Are you committed to helping people find their purpose? Are you committed to loving and serving your family well? Getting super clear on what it is you're committed to and being and showing up as that no matter what is going on. So even in the midst of Corona or all of the tricky times that we're facing, maybe you're having a really tough day, maybe you're having a very exciting day, but continuing to showing up and to honor your commitments and doing it in a way that is in your most authentic self. And so if you're not having if you're not having a great day, honoring that, saying, you know what, it's been a pretty tough day for me, but I'm not going to let that stop me from honoring my commitment. And so really showing up as your most authentic self in a way that honors your commitment, to me, that is positive leadership.
I love that. I love it so much because it's so crucial for leaders to do exactly what you said, to show up authentically, because if we can't even show up authentically for ourselves, like you said, honor yourself. If, it is a tough day, things aren't going well. I mean, we have to acknowledge that and just give ourselves a little space there. And unless we can do that kind of thing as a leader and basically lead ourselves, we can't really very well turn around and lead others. And we certainly can't do it from an authentic place if we are not authentic in and of ourselves. So I love it so much. And what you said about the commitment piece as well, right? I mean, as leaders, we have all these goals, we have all these demands on our time. And really, it all comes down to, what are you committed to? What are your priorities? And knowing those so well that when you have those difficult days, or you have those days where there's like 5,000 things coming at you from all angles, you're able to pause, take a breath and decide, okay, I realize how much is wanted of me right now, but here's what I am committed to doing. Here are my priorities. This is what I've got to focus on. And this is how I can effectively lead in this moment. So I love that definition. Thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Absolutely.
So tell us, because I think this is what, listeners are really intrigued to hear, what has been for you the most valuable lesson that you've learned from losing your eyesight, and how that inspires others, like how you use that experience to do what you do today. Tell us about that journey and all the adversity you've had to overcome, and how you now leverage that in what you do now.
Absolutely. For me, I'll give you guys a little bit of background, but I started to lose my sight when I was a child. And I really love this story because I get the opportunity to use it to teach, whether I'm teaching on, by speaking on stages or through one-on-one coaching. But the concept is knowing your truth and not allowing other people's stories to steer and author your life. And so when I started to lose my eyesight, I didn't think that there was anything wrong. I thought, I've got to wear some glasses. I've got to do some things differently than the other kids. But I never really perceived that there was anything wrong that was happening. I was pretty happy, content with things as they were. What started to really change my perception of the circumstance was hearing other people's responses to the circumstance itself. And that would be things like, poor thing, or I feel so sorry for you, or that's a shame, or things are going to be so much harder. And this is a child, right? A child who perceives that there's nothing wrong, hearing the responses of adults who have been warped and damaged in their own ways. I mean, of course, their intentions were not ill in any manner. So hearing those responses over and over again, you've got stories that start to develop.
Yeah. And just to interrupt you for one moment, what age were you, Amber, when that happened and you were hearing those stories? Like, were you in a very kind of impressionable phase of childhood? How old were you?
Really great question, Alex. Probably about, between like the ages of like 5 and 8.
Oh, wow. Yes. So really, I mean, at that age, right, like kids are like sponges, and we're looking to the role models around us and listening to what they say and emulating what they do. So yeah, wow. Okay. So you're hearing all these stories. Okay. So carry on. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to get
just for some context. No, it's really great. So, stories start to develop from hearing those responses. And all of a sudden I went from just being, happy and bubbly and vivacious, not perceiving that there was anything wrong, really adapting quite well to the changes that were occurring. Going from that to, wait a minute, maybe there is something wrong. Maybe I am, poor thing, or this is going to be hard, or maybe this is a really terrible thing that's happening. And so my life just started to become steered by these stories. And what I've learned from that was going back to what I know my truth to be. And so even now, I know, with just about 5 to 7 degrees of my visual field, I know my truth to be that, yes, I am a Black woman in America with a disability, that we use the word blind for that. So I'm blind, I have a visual disability. So those are some things that are true about me. In addition to those things, Alex, I'm also bold, courageous, a thought leader, a speaker, a coach, a founder of a nonprofit. So there's so many things about me that are true. And whenever I'm faced with a circumstance where I have the option of, especially as being Black in America, where I have the option of either living the truth of what others think about me or going back to what I know to be true about me and living my life from that place. That's how I've gotten to the place where I am, and that's how I'm going to continue to rise as I move forward in this journey, is making a clear choice on a daily basis. And even in the times of great adversities, when I'm faced with lots of, tricky scenarios, am I going to be living based on what others say about me or what others perceive me as or how others see me? Or am I going to live by the truth of how I know myself to be?
Oh, that is just so beautiful. I just love it. And how did you, you were at that young age, so you were very impressionable with all those stories swirling around. And as you said, none of these adults, none of it was maliciously intended. It's kind of just our human reaction. And especially as adults, because, we look at a child and we see a child that, now isn't quote unquote perfect, right? Has this disability. And we think, oh, life is going to be so much harder for her than it is for this little girl who has, her 20/20 vision. It's very natural for adults to react in that way and to, sort of start to put these ideas and these stories out there that you then started to absorb. But again, you were so young. Like, what was it for you that that pivotal moment where you were being brought down by this? You, like you said, you went from being so vivacious and enthusiastic to just sort of, I don't know, sitting in that victim place, maybe is a way to put it. But like, then you pivoted from that and you said, no, I know what my truth is. I know who I am. And obviously you decided, I'm going to go for it in life no matter what. So what happened? Was there someone involved there? Was it just some really deep strength that you found in yourself, even as a young child? How did you pivot away from it?
This sort of reminds me of the campaign that we had a couple of Olympics ago. It might have been the 2012 Olympics, where they were asking, what's your defining moment? What's the one moment that happened in your life where everything changed and all of a sudden you go from just ordinary to amazing? And I remember watching those commercials thinking, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just showing up and doing better each day. And I think there's a lot of pressure in seasons of adversity to come up with and sure, there are defining moments in life, but I think there is still a lot of pressure to come up with this, in this moment, I'm going to make a choice and going forward, everything is going to be different from that place. And we do have the opportunity to make declarations. We do have moments in our lives that bring forth revelations that are very deep and meaningful. But I just want to encourage the listeners, you get to have that defining moment every single day. So there wasn't like August 26th, 1998, like this thing happened. It was me day by day deciding how I wanted to live my life. Maybe one day I did something that was, challenging or scary or hard or difficult. Maybe one day I showed myself some grace and I said, you know what? I'm going to relax today. I'm going to take it easy. This has been a challenging past weeks or couple of months. I'm going to honor my body and my mind and my space today. And then maybe the next day it's, you know what? I've been holding off on this really challenging thing that I wanted to accomplish. I'm going to do that. So it's every single day coming into alignment with who you know yourself to be, and then giving yourself that grace when maybe you're not at the place that you want it to be today, but you're further ahead than you were the day before. I know this isn't super radical information, but I really I've been to so many conferences and workshops and all these things, and it's like, you got to have your moment. And that can be really good for people at the time, but tell me what happens 2 days, 2 weeks after that conference. You still feeling
Yeah.
energized like you were in the crowd when you paid $600 for a ticket? You're not.
Right.
Things are probably the same, because it's every single day making that choice to be in alignment with who you know yourself to be. And you said something, Alex, that was really, really just a super key piece to all of this. So, honoring yourself, going back to your truth, being committed to showing up every day as your most authentic self, taking bold steps on a consistent basis. But who do you have in your corner to hold you accountable to that? And so for me growing up, it was mentors. Right now, I also I have mentors still, but I also have a coach who I invest in to hold me accountable to living in my truth and to taking these bold steps and to calling me higher. For my clients, it's me as their coach. And
Mhm.
so showing up, being committed, that's great, but you've got to have at least one person who's outside of your family, outside of your normal friend group, who isn't your spouse. You've got to have one person from the outside who can get in your corner and continue to coach you to victory and hold you accountable to calling you higher on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
I think with those things, there's you can't lose. You're gonna win. You're gonna achieve things. You're going to overcome adversities by being committed, showing up, doing one hard thing a day, and then taking a break when you have to,
Yeah.
and having somebody in your corner who can cheer you on
Yeah.
and give you the kick in the pants when you need it.
Wow. Yes. And I mean, oh, you provided so much valuable like gems there. Excuse me. I mean, just to unpack it for a moment, we just did a show actually on mentoring, and it's wonderful to hear you mention that, because I don't care how high up the ladder anybody ever gets. I don't care if you are Bill Gates, right? You still need a mentor of some kind. You know, we all need that person. There's always going to be someone who has more experience than us. There's always going to be someone who brings in a different perspective. There's always going to be someone, you know, who can be that person. And so, you know, leaders who are listening, even if you have reached, you know, the pinnacle of your leadership position or your career, you still need a mentor. And of course, you can pass that along by being a mentor to other people too, right? You can be in your, I mean, for you, Amber, you described it as you have your coach, and then of course you're coaching other people. So you're actually, you know, paying it forward and then also receiving it at the same time. And I think as leaders, you know, we have somewhat of an obligation to make sure that we are actually doing both things, that we're being mentored by someone who's helping us, you know, either see things in a different way or holding us accountable. And then we in turn are mentoring people and helping them come along and realize their full potential. So I love that you brought that up. It's fantastic. And then this whole idea that you mentioned, like we've got to have our moment. You know, I'm so with you on that. Like some people do. They have these pivotal epiphany moments and things just change on a dime. But for the rest of us, sometimes it can just be a slow build. And some days it might feel like a grind, but other days it feels better. But, you know, you mentioned it several times and it's so crucial. Like the core of it is to show up. Just show up authentically, of course, but show up every day for yourself, show up for other people. Some days are going to be better than others, but as you do that, just continual action and being consistent, then you just start to prove to yourself over time, you know, I can overcome challenges. I can do this. Here comes another challenge, but I did this back here and I know I can do this one in front of me. And so it's like this incremental, it's not very glamorous. It doesn't lend itself to an amazing story, perhaps, but it is the way that we truly, over time, build ourselves into these solid, truly authentic, grounded in ourselves leaders is that whole idea of showing up. So thank you for sharing that it's not about, I have to have this pivotal moment. It's like, no, you just be consistent, just continue, keep going where you're going, keep working at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. So now you mentioned that being blind has made your life better in some ways than if you had been fully sighted. Tell us about that. Where do you see the advantages there? In what ways is it better for you, that you think, than having kept your sight like most people do?
I think it was simply just the experience of overcoming adversity and having to come up with solutions and adaptations for things uh, more often than not on a daily basis, whether that being, how do I use this piece of technology that's not accessible, or how do I complete this graduate school assignment without the proper accessible technology that I need, or how do I adapt these things in my life or on the fly as I'm traveling, or whatever the case may be. So just being more adaptable, and also having a way about me that is like, I'm gonna figure this thing out no matter what. So just having a lot of tenacity and drive. I think I'm, especially when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, and of course being the founder of a nonprofit, really having these skills of tenacity and overcoming no matter what the circumstances are has given me a true edge in leadership that I absolutely love to just pass on to others, whether they have a disability or not. Most of my private coaching clients don't have disabilities, but in the same way, I'm able to pass this gift of tenacity and overcoming to them, so that they can use it in their own lives to make an impact on the world in a beautiful way. So I'm grateful for the skills and the gifts that I have gleaned throughout this experience so far.
Yeah. It's made you almost like the ultimate problem solver. Like, ain't no problem coming at me that I can't get around or deal with or figure out.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's, what is her name? Marie Forleo. She says, everything is figure outable.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's one of your mantras too.
Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, you've had all these amazing experiences. How do you incorporate these experiences and just, your wisdom, what you've learned along the way, into your work with leaders? Like, what does that look like? Tell us a little bit about the work that you do with leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've developed something called the BOLD method, BOLD, BOLD, which is a special word for me because it's a word that a lot of people, you ever seen those questions where it's like three words that people would describe you as? And no matter who I'm talking to, whether they've known me for a short time or a long time, a lot of people would describe me as a bold person. So I've taken that word and come up with a 4-step strategy that really encompasses all that I've learned over the years into a very simple and memorable strategy for my coaching clients to use as we start to navigate problems, big and small. So just a real quick rundown of the BOLD method. B stands for breaking free from the story. And we've talked about that early on of how life circumstances can start to shape stories that we tend to believe, and then those stories end up steering our lives. So for me, that was, poor thing, she's going blind, or lots of different things around that. Of course, there are lots of stories surrounding my race that I had to deal with growing up in the South Louisiana here in the US. And so we want to identify those stories that might be coming up for us and break free from those, and really get to a place where those stories are no longer steering our lives. O stands for overcome fear. And going back to not necessarily requiring a defining moment, overcoming fear is simply taking the next step. Just taking one step forward, really, really helps us to truly overcome fear. And so we talk about, what's one next step that we can take right now to get us closer to our dreams. And L stands for live your truth. And that goes back to even me, you know, on a daily basis. Am I living my truth right now? If there's breakdown that occurs, am I in alignment with who I know myself to be? Am I in alignment with my truth? And the only way to answer that question is by knowing your truth and by having someone in your corner who can hold you accountable to that truth.
Mm-hmm.
D stands for dreaming with purpose. You know, there's really great dreams out in the world, but it's the purposeful dreams that make the impact. And so just in my own life, again, being a Black woman in America in 2020, I'm grateful for the people who came before me who didn't just have dreams of getting rich or dreams of being famous, but who had dreams that were purposeful and led to a greater impact in the world. I was talking to a coworker a couple days ago who's the receptionist of where I work, and she said, yeah, when I came over to California, I came over on a segregated bus. And we both, you know, we take public transportation in San Francisco all the time. And I never thought about in her lifetime, in this very same place that we live now, she came over on a bus where she had to sit in a certain place because of the color of her skin.
Wow.
I can't imagine what that's like to have to even do that. And so I said that to say that being a person, like my purpose in life is to guide people who have purposeful dreams. Every single one of my clients has a purposeful dream that I'm helping them to turn into a reality. That's my specialty. I help people turn their dreams into reality. And so dreaming with a purpose is the final step in the BOLD method. And it all stems from a place of the previous step. You know, we're not going to live the stories that have been placed upon us by society. We're going to overcome fear by taking the next step. We're going to be constantly seeking alignment and living our truth. And we're going to dream with purpose, and we're going to leave an impact on the world. So that's what I do with leaders. What I do, simply put, is I transform leaders into bold world changers. And I use this method, and I use my gifts, my skills, my wisdom, my encouragement to help leaders dream purposefully and to turn that dream into a reality.
Oh, so powerful. I love it. And your method is genius because, you know, as you were going through each step, I was thinking, yeah, you got to do that step before you do the next one, because none of it works if you don't break free from the stories, right? Like that's the old programming. That's the old, you know, I'm telling myself this story over and over. Like I was told I was stupid as a kid, so now I think I'm stupid even as an adult, and I'm constantly doing things trying to, you know, prove that I'm not, right? I'm stuck in this story. So until we break free from that, we really can't then overcome fear, because part of staying in our story is that even though it can be uncomfortable, it's kind of scary to think about life not in the story, right? So it's like, once you break free, now it's like this scary, unknown, whoa, life is kind of like, there's lots of possibilities, but that's kind of scary too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got to overcome those. And then only then, when you've broken free, you've overcome, can you actually get to what you were talking about, living authentically, like living your own truth, getting to know that. And being that person, right? Because you can't do that if you're still stuck in your old stories. And then you can go on to actually, you know, make that purposeful dream come true. But you can't do it if you're stuck back in your story. So I think your framework and your how you're guiding people through that journey is just, it's wonderful. It's fabulous. And it's genius the way you've like sequentially put it together. I love it.
Beautiful. Thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, of course. So what's your advice for leaders who want to be bold world changers, who want to be positive world changers, like they want to have an impact, and, you know, maybe they're not having the impact they want right now, whether it's, who knows, they might be stuck in a story, they might have fear, they might just feel like, oh, well, I'm not in the right company to be able to do this. I need a different job. I mean, whatever it is that's going on, like, what's your, whether it's a one piece of advice or a couple, like, what do you say to people like that who like want that, but they don't really know how to get it, right? Like I want to be a positive world changer. I want to be bold, but I don't really know how to do that. And I'm kind of just in my own little world right now doing what I do every day.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've noticed just having talked to so many people who are either, being a leader right now in a way that they are feeling called to make an impact in the world, or people that want to start something, or they want to transition into something, into a place where they're making an impact in the world. That statement of, I don't know what to do next, I really, really strongly believe that that is not the truth for most people. Most people know exactly what to do next. Most people are a phone call away, a text message away, an email, a submit button away from really making their wildest dreams come true. So I think most people know what to do next. They've got an idea, and it might not be a huge, big thing. It might just be, hey, texting someone that they met saying, hey, I'd love to follow up with you. Can we have a Zoom call next week? Or, hey, I'm interested in what you're up to. Can we schedule a phone call to talk more about it? Or, hey, remember that job position that you told me about? Yes, I would love to learn more. Most people know the next step to take. Or even some people just getting out of their head and saying, you know what, I'm going to teach that workshop next 2 Thursdays from now at 5 p.m. I'm just going to put the event up and see who comes. Most people know what next step to take. They just haven't taken it. So my one piece of advice, I give it all the time. Not a lot of people take it, but I guarantee you the ones that do are the ones making an impact, and the ones that we're going to be talking about 20 years from now. My one piece of advice is simply to take the next step. Not talking about 27 steps from now or creating this whole big thing, but what is the one next step that you can take to get you closer? Is it a connection call with someone just to talk about your dream more? Emailing someone, asking their feedback? What is the next step that you can take to get you closer to your dreams?
I love it. And very often, as you illustrated with your examples there, that next step is not that big. I mean, I think that's part of the issue is like we want to do something really big, so we think that the action step has to be big. But the reality is when you look at all these, you look at people who have, been, historical figures who are our current, high leaders at the moment. We think because we see them at the top of their game that like somehow they got there overnight. They didn't. They took a lot of small steps, and going back to our theme from earlier, they just kept showing up every day and taking more small steps every day. And it's the accumulation effect of that, right? It's the compounding effect of show up every day, take a step that's going to move you closer. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's still a step closer than you were 5 minutes ago. And it's just the accumulation of those that ultimately gets you to that huge, big, woo, I just had an impact on the world, right? It just doesn't happen. So in your experience, what is the main reason that most people don't take that next step? Because I think you're very astute in saying most people know exactly what they should be doing. Most people know what that next step is. So why don't most of them take it, Amber?
Well, Alex, I tell you, there's no main reason. There's only one reason, and that reason is fear.
Yeah.
People are afraid. They're afraid of what they could accomplish. They're afraid of knowing what's on the other side. They're afraid that maybe their hunch is correct. Maybe this is going to lead them into the life they've always wanted. It's fear. And the only way to overcome it is by taking the next step.
Exactly. And hey, we're all vulnerable to it, right? I mean, me too. I mean, I know in certain places in my life I should be taking a next step, and I'm not because, I get a little fearful. But for me, I have a little trick. It's one of my little mantras that in most cases gets me over the hump of that. And it's, if you don't ask, you don't get. Because usually a step involves asking for something, asking somebody to help you with something, asking, for direction, for more information. It's usually asking for something or asking somebody for something, right? There's an act there of getting along. Like, we can't do it on our own. So if we're sitting in that fear of, yeah, but what will they think of me if I do that? Or what if they say no, right? What if they say no? Well, so what if they do? Who cares? Like, what's the worst? Like, that's the other thing. What's the worst thing that anybody can say to you? No. Okay, then I'll go another route. Like, at least I know that door is closed then, and I don't have to sit here wondering if the door is possible or not. It's closed now, so I'll just go off in a different direction. So it's that case of like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And what is the worst thing they can say? No. Big deal. So that's just one of my little tricks. But I know everybody has their own way of, navigating through that. But I think you're absolutely right that it's the whole fear piece. And so I love that you're working with these leaders to help them overcome that, because we all deal with fear in all different aspects of our life, and it can show up in weird and different ways as well. So tell us real quick about your nonprofit. What is the nonprofit, and what was the inspiration for it, and the purpose of it?
Yeah, so the name of our nonprofit is Kingdom Eyes, and our mission is to empower people with disabilities to see themselves as God sees them, whole and complete and lacking nothing. And we bring this vision to life through equipping churches and Christian communities with the knowledge and the truth about how God sees people with disabilities and the strategy to love and serve them well. So we do that through our comprehensive disability awareness consulting, our mentoring programs, and our missions trips as well. So really, we're just out to make church and faith more accessible and more socially empowering for people with disabilities, which is currently not the case.
Wow, that's amazing. And is faith a big part of your journey and your story, Amber?
It is.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus, and faith is definitely important to me. I read my Bible and pray every day, and pray and fast often. And really, my faith is the definitely the secret sauce to all of my success and all that I am. Could not have done it without being guided by the Holy Spirit and being rooted and grounded in the truth that for me, it's the Word, it's the Bible, and also my relationship that I have with Jesus and the community that I have as well surrounding that has been so wonderful to me.
Yeah. And in the faith and in your relationship with Jesus, I mean, that is the ultimate mentoring relationship, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it doesn't, that he is the ultimate mentor in all of this, right? So we can have our mortal mentors as well, but he's the ultimate mentor, and obviously, provided a lot of guidance and support for you through all of this. That's so
absolutely.
I love it. Amber, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so inspired by you, and I'm sure you actually hear that a lot. It might get old for you, but some of the things that you've talked about today, I mean, we didn't even really get into this a whole lot, but you've mentioned it a couple of times. So not only have you had to deal with your disability, but as you said, you are a Black woman in America, and we all know that is a very difficult path. It's all, I mean, right now it's the race conversation is bubbling up. It is coming to the fore, and I'm so grateful for that. And hopefully we are going to see some real meaningful change in this country. We've had change in the past, but now is the time for big change, like really big change, because it's way overdue. And yet here you are, you're almost having to deal with both of those things together. So someone dealing with a disability, it's a challenge. Someone dealing with being Black in America, that's a challenge. But you've got both going on. And at no point have you chosen to sit in that place where, like you said earlier, I'm listening to the typical story of what that is, of what I just said. Hey, you've got a disability, life is hard. If you're a Black person in America, life is hard. You've chosen instead to have your own truth and just to move forward and do it. And so it's like, hey, if Amber can do this stuff, we all can do this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely, with humility, of course, I know that I've been blessed with a lot of strength to deal with adversities. And I think that if she can do it, we all can do it. It sounds really good, but I don't think that is the truth. We all have a measure of strength. And, I don't think that if I can do it, everyone else can do it. And I don't think that way about other people. I think each of us have special gifts, special skills, and a very unique perspective, no matter what our race is, no matter whether or not we have a disability. And we all have a unique calling on our lives. And so what you're called to do, Alex, if you can do it, doesn't mean that I can at all.
Right.
Because that's not my path. And so I just want to encourage people too, as you're hearing a story that might sound inspiring, and you think, oh, if she can do it, why can't I? Well, I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on what your calling is and saying, if this is my calling, if this is what I'm committed to, then this is what I'm going to accomplish. And I think it's a definitely a meaningful sentiment. If she can do it, then we all can. But unfortunately, that's not the way life works, and that's not the way that life is. We have to embrace who we are.
Yeah.
I'm a Black woman in America who has a disability, who has a specific past and a specific story and a specific journey. And that's not everyone's story. And your story, whoever's listening to this, is not my story. There are things that you can do that I can't. There are things that you're called to do that just aren't my thing. And so as you're listening to podcasts and getting to, these amazing conferences and seeing all these inspiring stories, I want you to know that your story matters and your dream matters, and no one else has it but you.
Oh,
So
definitely
taking charge and ownership of your story and ownership of your dream, and saying, if you don't do it, no one else will do it. That's what I want you to take away. If you don't do your dream is not going to become a reality. Your impact is not going to be made in the world. So if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. No one else is going to tell my story. Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for each and every one of us. So if you don't do it, no one will. And so take pride in your story. Take ownership in your dream, because it matters. And just want to encourage everyone in that today.
I love it. Oh, well, thank you for actually putting the nuance on that, in terms of, well, if she could do it, anyone can. I love that. And I agree with it too. Everybody's story, everybody's path is their own. And you truly are inspirational, though. Even if my path is different, my story is different, of course it is. But I'm still inspired by you, and I'm inspired by everything that you have shared today. It's been just amazing. I mean, and you shared your wisdom. You've also shared actionable information by giving us your BOLD framework, right? Breaking free of the stories, overcoming fear, living authentically, and then dreaming purposefully. I just love that. So I know that our listeners are going to want more of you. We cannot pack in enough of Amber into this one little episode. So how can people get in touch with you? How can they connect with you? And I think you also have a pretty cool complimentary offer as well to share.
Yeah, and I was so honored that you invited me to be a guest on your show, Alex, and to speak with your audience. And so I would love to just offer your listeners just a 30-minute connection call with me. Alex is going to have the link right in the show description, but go ahead and click on that link. It's just for you guys. Book a time that works for you, and let's just hop on a call. My favorite thing in the whole wide world to do is to encourage and inspire people in their stories. So whatever even if you're not sure about how you want to impact the world, let's get on a call. Let's talk about your gifts. Let's talk about your dream, and let me show you the path forward and really offer you some guidance on what I think is the next best step for you to really start to be dreaming with purpose and to be fully stepping into your calling. So that's there for you guys. Take advantage of it. Maybe that's your next bold move, is to just click that link and book a call with me. But it would be my pleasure. I'd absolutely love to hear from you guys.
Awesome. And what's your website and what social media are you on, Amber?
Totally. Yeah. So it's Amber Kierra, Kierra, and you can find me there on Instagram, Facebook, and also amberkierra.com.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. And just as I bring this to a close, I just want to thank all the listeners for tuning in. As always, this show would not be what it is without you. And so, you heard from Amber today. We're all feeling inspired. Be bold in what you choose to do. And thank you for joining for this episode. If you have positive leadership stories to share, or you have questions about this topic, or you want to get in touch with Amber, whatever, write to me at questions@positiveleadershipmovement.com. And as Amber mentioned, we do have the link to connect with her in the description for the show. So be sure to take advantage of her amazing offer. So, and if you've got any other questions, write to me at questions@positiveleadershipmovement.com. I always love to hear from each and every one of you. So as always, thank you for being part of the Positive Leadership Movement and inspiring me to do what I do every single day.
Make sure you subscribe to the show. If you like this episode, please rate and review. If you want to get more from Alex, check out Happiness at Work, where she provides leaders with a proven path to cultivate a positive work culture that increases performance, productivity, and profitability. Go to happinessatworknow.com. Join us next week and harness the power of positive leadership for your organization.